Would you like to increase your visibility and profitability with total ease? Have clients and opportunities come to you as if by magic? Make a profitable impact on the world by being more of the crazy, amazing you truly be? Welcome to the Expand Your Impact podcast with your hosts, Mandy and Ron. Join us as we invite you into the space of more ease, joy, and glory. We invite you to come play with us and the tools and resources we use to effortlessly expand our awareness and consciousness.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Have you ever been told that you can't have what you want, or that you want too much?
Or that you are too much?
I sure have, like a gazillion times. And I've let myself believe that it was so true for so many years.
How did that show up?
Well, it's this tangled mix of, like, from the word want, we get taught it as a kid, and then we get taught to, like, we question what we want. Can we have it? Is it really possible? And then we, like, get something that we want, and then we're like, ooh, I didn't really want all of that, or, like, some of that. And so for me, I guess when I started being an entrepreneur is kind of when all of this enlightenment around the word want came into being for me. So I was working at an internet marketing agency down here in South Florida, which was known then as the spam capital of the world. And I knew I was working 80-hour weeks, and I wanted to start a family, and I wanted to take all this internet knowledge that I have and, like, create something for me. I knew I didn't want to have a family and try to keep working 80-hour weeks. It would not be fun, right? And so I was in this question of want, I just want to start my own thing is what I said. And I just want to, work for myself. And so I created a reality where I got laid off, and I got invited to teach at a local marketing association about how to use Twitter to get clients or grow your business. And so I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. The universe is giving me all of this time to go and do what I love doing, speaking and teaching. And so that turned into, doing more speaking. And along the way, I got these nuances of, I thought that just going around and speaking would be enough. And then I quickly realized that, speaking's great, but if it's not paying the bills, it's not enough, right? And so you get lost in this twisted sort of loop of, when you say that you want something, most of the time what I've found to come over time is I'm wanting the energy of what somebody else has, not necessarily what we know now to be like the conclusionary reality of what they have. So for a long time, I created a lot of drama and trauma around what I thought that I wanted, because other people told me that I should want it. Other people told me that this is how it has to happen. And I didn't really stay in a question or operate from a question. I just sort of took what they told me that I should want.
What's an example of something that you wanted because somebody else wanted it for you?
Well, at that time, I was wanting to be an entrepreneur, even though, I'd gone to school and gotten an MBA to have a real normal person job. And I just sucked at having a normal person job. I hated it. And I was married at the time and wanted to have children. And my husband said at the time, this is not Ron, my husband said, I don't really want to have children with you. And I don't want to, I don't really like you being an entrepreneur. I want somebody who can bring in a stable paycheck every 2 weeks or something like that, right? So even though my parents told me that that was what I should want, or society did, right? White picket fence and, perfect marriage and things like that, I learned that that's not really what worked for me, or in those ways did that work for me.
When you talked to this about your mother, that you were having this bubbling up, What did she suggest you should do?
Well, a lot of the times people, because they're afraid of their own, how that would affect them, they inflict their wants on you. And so for a long time it was, I'd probably go to hell if I got divorced. And so I had to walk through that transition of, being okay with, was I really in hell the way I was? And could I live that way? Or did the wanting what I want, was there another possibility in this reality where I could create what I wanted and not care that it was not what somebody else wanted for me, or that it wasn't in the way that they wanted it for me?
I remember you telling me a story where your mother said that you should listen to your husband. And the reason I bring that up is that is one of those circumstances where the person that's raised you and taught you subconsciously so much about how the world is supposed to work, right, is now directing you to listen to somebody else instead of listen to your heart or listen to yourself, right? And so one of the early, influences in your life wasn't designing your life around what it was that you wanted.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. So the lesson in that, in some ways, is like, where else are you learning to want what you want versus want what someone else wants? And can you really tell the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you realized that you wanted to please your husband,
mm-hmm.
and you wanted to please your clients, and you wanted to please your mother. Right. And that brought up a lot of conflicts, because sometimes it's hard to have all of those wants coincide with what you want.
Yeah. And what I remember from that time, and we see it experienced a lot with clients, is it shows up as you lacking confidence. It shows up as you not getting things done, like lack of discipline or procrastination or something like that. Right. But what it really sort of did to me is it created a lot of anxiety in my world, and created at that time a lot of depression as well. And so it was just wreaking havoc on my body, so that at my very lowest point, my body said, it just can't, we're not going to let you ignore this anymore. We're going to actually create some physical manifestation of a disease for you so that you can wake up. And so for me, the rock bottom for me was being diagnosed with macular degeneration in my early 30s, and being left partially blind and faced with not being able to have children, because part of the treatment that they gave me hadn't been tested on childbearing aged women. And so I had to sign a waiver in order to be treated that I wouldn't try to get pregnant.
Because the type of eye malfunction that you were experiencing normally happens in somebody who's at the late stage of their life.
Right, in menopause or something. So not needing to worry about what this drug would do to the ovaries and all those girly parts there. But for me, that time of being partially blind really allowed me to go inside and look at, what do I not want to see? Where am I aligning and agreeing with other people's points of view about my life, my living, my body?
Why did you consider what things you did not want to see? You said that really casually. And so for those of listeners that aren't familiar with some of your points of view, what caused you to ask, what is it that I'm not seeing?
Well, with the blindness, it was I think it was a joke from one of my healer friends who probably was very much in tune with some sort of divine download. But it was one of those things of if you have, some blindness, your body's not wanting to see something, right? And so does that have any correlation or purpose in my own life? And it did. It was
caused you some soul searching?
Yeah. So when I took responsibility for the blindness, it allowed me to train myself and my brain to see what was possible for me, literally and figuratively, right? I made some dramatic changes in my life at that point, and I started to surround myself with people who believed in me and the gift that I was in the world, and it helped me to start to see the gifts that other people were too. Whereas before I was a hugely judgmental bitch because in order for me to be special and right, I had to ooze this aura of everyone else is wrong, because I was always trying to compare myself to other people to see sort of where I fit in. And when I finally sort of strengthened my own vision of myself and made it a habit to talk to myself about when I would start to go do something, if I was pushing or using force to go do it, I had to question, is this something that I even want to be doing? Or does my body want to be doing? Or is there some other information here that I can know that will help this, whatever it is, to come with a lot more ease? So I studied a lot of different techniques, both in the energy healing modalities and in the internet marketing world, to try to come up and create a place in a reality that worked for me.
So you said something interesting. You said you took responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about what it means to take responsibility for it? Like, did you poke yourself in the eye to make the blindness?
Well, the doctor had to do that twice with the needles.
Right.
The taking responsibility really looked at, at that time I was studying a lot of law of attraction, and it was our thoughts create our reality, right? And I've since learned that it's our choices that create our reality, right? Not just the thoughts, because we can think a zillion thoughts, and we can be homeless under a bridge in 2 seconds if we, go down the anxiety trail, or we can be, off, with a horse, with somebody picking us up on a horse and riding us off into a wonderland as well. Like, there's all kinds of thoughts that we have, and it's the thoughts that we make, that we choose to take action on, that really is what creates our reality. And so for me, allowing myself to want more and being really grateful for knowing what I wanted and seeing in each of those places of, in Abraham's work, they call it the pivot, where you pivot, where you have a place of, you get shown a contrast, right? So for me, it was like, so right now I know that I want to have kids, and I know that this person I'm in a relationship with says that he doesn't want to have kids with me. Not just he doesn't want to have kids, he just doesn't want to have them with me, right? So getting to be very grateful for, so if I'm okay that I want that reality, and if I want to have this reality of being, making money on the internet and living a life of freedom, is it okay if I choose that for myself? And so responsibility meant standing up for what I really wanted and saying, I know that there's enough people out there in the world that I can find and create this reality that I want to have.
And it seems to me, especially the way that you've talked about it, taking responsibility also meant that the physical manifestation of the illness, you had to own that you had created that, and that meant something.
Yeah.
For you, that was life talking to you.
Yeah.
And so for you to really hear what that message was and really listen to what that was, and not be like, well, life just threw me a bad card, right? And I'm a victim to that circumstance. When you say you take responsibility for it, you're really saying, okay, I've created this. I'd like to create something different. And in my responsibility, I'm gaining all this awareness because I'm allowing and accepting everything that's coming up. As I ponder, like, how did I paint myself into this corner, right? How did I make this stuff happen?
Yeah, and as soon as I as soon as I made that choice of like, okay, I can want what I want, and I started making asks of the universe for those wants, it's amazing how things showed up for me, and how things showed up in ways that I even never dreamed possible. And we'll go into that in future podcast episodes. But in when we're inviting you into today with the history of my story and how this is unfolded, because the moment I said, you know what, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, this is just the life that I choose, and I want to be able to have kids in my life, and I took the steps to, let others in my world know that was what was happening. The husband that I was with at the time, came home with a spreadsheet the next day and said, we should have done this 5 years ago. Here's how I want to divide the assets. And, by the end of the week, I had a beautiful mansion to go stay in rent free. on the ocean here in South Florida. And I enrolled my first 5-figure client, right? And everything just started to come with a lot more ease because I was choosing for me and for what I wanted based on like what worked for me at that time.
And how much resistance did you have even in the unfolding of that from the people around you?
Oh, it felt really, really scary because you've known a world and you've created this entire world that supported you in this limited capacity, right? And I remember my mom and, even my ex looking at me and he's like, you're not who I thought you were. And, I can't believe, people would say, I can't believe you would choose this, right? And it was their way of really wanting to make me wrong for them not being able to allow me to be me and just, okay, so this is how it all shows up, right? And that's the allowance of other people is where we still have a lot of judgment in the world, and that's what keeps us separated.
So how did you work through dealing with other people's feelings and reactions and stuff? Because in typically people really want to please those ones that are close to them. People that are close to them, you want to please them, and that's an important component. And I know in your story, like there's a lot of wanting to take care of other people and to look after other people and to please other people. And how did you work through the pleasing of other people in the idea? I know, for instance, you had a former boss who was deeply rooted in Christianity. I felt like he was taken aback by your decision to get a divorce. That's something he could never see. And that was initially, there was a rift with him about that. And I don't know if that was spoken or.
Not necessarily, but you could just tell that it was, it wasn't cool anymore, right? That I had sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right? And I think that you're asking how I dealt with that is I kept believing that if I had the inkling and the desire for something, that there had to be people out there that thought that same way. And I just continued to reach out and find people that supported my point of view. And even when, my mom said, well, of course you're going to find people that support your point of view. I didn't take that as a wrongness. I really took it as something of like, you know what? And it is. And so our invitation for you today with this community, this launch of this podcast is just to gather together all of those amazing people. You guys know who you are. Perhaps you want more for yourself. You want more for your business. You want more for your family, your community, and the planet, right? You want more, and you don't understand it. And a lot of times you've been made wrong for it. A lot of times, right? And so it's time. This community is about, it's your voice for those who are tired of being told that they're wrong, and for those of you who are tired of being told you're too much. This is going to be the place where we get to teach you the marketing strategies, the personal development strategies, the sales and marketing strategies, tactics, tools, all of that are going to help you shed away the layers of what people have told you you're supposed to be doing when it comes to marketing and things like that, and really invite you into a space of being who you need to be to change the world. So if you're looking for clients who
appreciate your value and are a joy to work with,
cash,
to prove you're well paid for the value you provide,
fun,
to find enjoyable ways to market and promote yourself,
and freedom.
So that it comes knowing exactly what to do and being able to manage your own schedule.
If yes, it's time to expand your impact. Today is your day. Today is the year. This is your reality. It's time for you to become the hero in your own life and learn how to be more of you, and receive all of that without judgment and shine your light into the world. So let's get into some of the tips and tactics we've got for everybody today.
So as we started to put the show notes together for what we wanted to present, we've combined a couple of anecdotes and some stories, and then some tools that we use actively in our day-to-day. Because what I think distinguishes some of how we work is that we use energy tools and consciousness throughout our life and throughout our business, and we string together these tools into the marketing strategy and into the marketing tactics, into the messaging, right, in order to impact the totality of our business. And so often for people that are maybe at the early stage of their business, we know that there is sort of a ceiling that you get to. And that ceiling I recognize as being confounded by confusion and doubt and anxiety and lack.
Overwhelm.
Yes, it's a mental roof. It's a roof that you put on that until you're willing to break through and have more ease with wanting more and being allowed to be more of yourself, you're going to continue to perpetuate and kill your own dreams, right? Creating drama and trauma until you break through the confusion and doubt sort of layer that goes with the mindset. So we want to recognize that in every aspect of your life and every aspect of your business, that these consciousness tools can be integrated with, let's say, your email program, right?
Your
within
Facebook
your website,
marketing.
right?
Yeah. So let's head into the next segment.
Ready for more fun, phenomenal, and rewarding clients? Let's do this.
All right, so when we're talking about more clients, we've come up with this story of one of our she's a nutritionist, she's now a certified yoga instructor, one of our community members who came to us originally because she was a freelancer, but she was working in an office where they gave her clients regularly. She had a full schedule. She just came in, she did her stuff. But she wanted more, right? She traveled an hour each way to get to the office, and she started to see all these people doing this online stuff, Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. And she's like, I want some of that. I want that, right? And so she came in and joined our community originally because she wanted to, she took the Instagram class that we teach, and it unraveled that, wait a second, in order to be someone who has that huge Instagram following and who, has this community on Instagram that buys whenever you offer something, you've got to be a certain kind of person, and you've got to be able to know what things to do. And oftentimes, I can tell a bunch of different clients the things that they can do. We've all heard them. You've been on the other webinars, you've been on, you've seen the Facebook ads and things like that. Hey, here's the 5 steps to get clients, or here's the 5 steps to Facebook ads. And what I found over time with our clients is, if they've tried those things and failed at them, it's such an invitation for them to be the change in the world that they're looking for. And the way that they're going to create success in the world is so vastly different from what anybody else has done before, because they're sort of piecing together this tactic from this guru and that tactic from that guru, and they don't have anybody to bounce that off with. What happens energetically with them on how to make that work, right? And in our nutritionalist's case here, she has immediately went and opened her own facility up and got her clients to come over with her. And we worked with her originally because when you learn the online stuff, you guys will learn that there's a lot of stuff to do between going and finding the new followers and then creating content to get the new followers to like you, and then creating sales pages and opt-in pages and all of that. Like there's some work involved in it, right? And so if you're working a full-time schedule, seeing clients 40 hours a week, you just don't have the time required to do all that marketing stuff, right? So normally when we work with clients, we invite them into charging more for the one-on-one work that they do with clients and enroll people in some sort of transformational packages. And so that took this community member from being somebody who was making $65, $100 a session to getting paid regularly $3,000 for like a 90-day jumpstart with people. And then that freed her up to be able to work a lot less hours and get to play online with stuff. And so we invited her to play with Facebook Live videos to start with. And so you have this idea of, I want to do Facebook. I want to do Facebook Lives, because the idea is that if you do it, you will get clients. You have that conclusionary reality, right? But the thing is, what happens when we tell people to do Facebook Lives?
There was some panic.
Panic?
Right? There's some lack of wanting people to see who you are. There's, it's not perfect. I'm not sure it's going to work out. I don't know how that's going to happen. There's some visibility issues. And these are what we say. And when you're going to do something and you have, what appears to be a catastrophic failure, right, is really you just creating the circumstances that hold you in place. And that's where we go back to what you were saying earlier about taking responsibility for the outcome and then retracing your steps. Okay, so what must I believe in order to continue to create that drama and trauma? Initially, what I remember about this is that there was a launch that was, let's say, a 6 to 8 week program, and then you get half into it and you're in overwhelm and you need to punt and change the date, right? And then there's some doubt that it's working, right? And then you go and look at the numbers and, okay, so every time I do this, there's a spike in traffic.
That's a number one thing that we work with clients a lot on. We have a group that meets 6 times a week. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, we got open office hours. We just allow people to come in and ask questions. And really, one of the things that you've got to shift between being somebody who does marketing and sales things, right, into being someone who has a successful business is make the transition of, most of the time, if you're intuitive or you're empathic, you're used to relying on your feelings to help you sort of navigate. But when it comes to selling your own products, selling your own services, watching yourself do Facebook Lives or videos or something, you get a shit ton more judgments and conclusions and thoughts that come up that kind of distract you. So our job is to be that voice of, wait a second, you're more beautiful than you think you are. Nobody pays attention to the one zit you've got over there, the one eyelash that's whatever it is you're worried about, the 20 pounds extra weight you have, right? Nobody cares about that. What they care about is you and your message. And so a lot of the times we're working with people to just help keep them focused on whatever you're doing is working. And the anxiety you feel is often where you can do some searching into, well, what do I want? And what do I want that is based off of what truly works for me, what I desire, and not from a place of wanting what somebody else told you should want, or from that place that real rooted, the word want means to lack, right? And so if we're choosing something from we're lacking what we desire, then we're going to keep creating that.
So how do you feel like that showed up for Nicole, where she turned to wanted one thing and then wanted something else and then wanted something else, or one of the other clients? How would you think of how a lack, you mentioned that the want starts in a root of lack. How does that show up?
Well, so originally, and this is how a lot of us create, right? In the beginning, when we're just learning to go create, is I did it, right? I was standing in Target in the baby aisle, smelling the baby diapers and saying, I don't want to work 80 hours a week. So we start our wants from don't want, right? I don't want this, right? And so for this nutritionist, she was not wanting to work the 40 hours a week and do the travel. And so she created from what she didn't want and made a new reality for herself. But the place that I've got to invite you guys into is to create from just pure choice of possibility, choice that everything is available to you. You just, and it's not your job to figure out the how we're going to get there, but it's your job to stay in that playground, that fun place of what else is possible, right? And then going, well, if I want it, then there has, or if I desire this different reality, there has to be the means for me to create it. I just got to go find the people that are in support of that.
And so you mentioned one of the tools
Mm-hmm.
that we use, which, in this notes we have interesting point of view,
Mm-hmm.
what else is possible, and how does it get any better than this?
Mm-hmm. So those are 3 foundational tools. They come from the work of Access Consciousness, which is just this really amazing body of work. If you guys want some more information on that, you can check out expandyourimpact.com/access. And we'll put in the show notes here the link to that. But that body of work really, it's about teaching you tools. So for me, I came into it after I'd studied a lot of law of attraction. And the law of attraction was telling me, you've got to be, right, and not do. And I was like, I don't know how to be. What does being mean? And so this first tool, Interesting Point of View, allows me to understand. It really helped me, especially because I have a noisy monkey mind brain. It allowed me in a moment where, when I'm standing in Target crying and I'm wanting a different life, right? And to be able to use the tool in my head, I'm saying to myself, interesting point of view, you work too hard and you can't have a kid while you're doing this. Interesting point of view that you want to start your own business. And by allowing myself to have some space around the ideas that I had, it allowed me to use a second tool, which is what else is possible, right? And so when you get some space around the judgment you have about how something has to look, and you start to have some space, you can say, well, what else is possible, right? And then getting laid off was one possibility, right?
So the idea of this interesting point of view is a tool that you use to consciously redirect the focus of your mind. Just to tie back to what Mandy was saying, with law of attraction, they're offering you an opportunity to pivot. And oftentimes when you're directly impacted by an immediate circumstance that's very important to you, the emotional reaction that you're dealing with is very difficult to shift when you're in that emotion. You can't shift the circumstance when you're being victim to it in the emotion. So this tool, interesting point of view that I have that point of view, interesting point of view that I have that point of view, interesting point of view I have that point of view, is almost a form of verbal tapping. Interesting point of view that I have that point of view. By repeating, it's an interesting point of view that I have that point of view, you're literally like reversing out of the focus on that circumstance that you're reacting to. Mm-hmm. That's where that space comes from. Because if you're sad about something, oh, my boyfriend left me, right? And all you're thinking about is the boyfriend left me, you're literally focusing all of your mental energy on the thing you do not want, right? So by introducing interesting point of view that I care about this, interesting point of view that I have this point of view, you're literally like redirecting your mind. And that's the point you were making about how the tools of access, right, helped you understand how to apply the concepts in law of attraction more effectively. These tools are stuff you can use in real time as you're processing. So what else is possible is literally a question to the universe that says, based on what I want, what can you do to help me facilitate that? How can I manifest? What else is possible? Mm-hmm. Right? You're just asking. You don't have to answer it. You just have to ask, right? Mm-hmm.
So we're going to move on here to the next segment where we want to talk about more cash. So that kind of wraps up our segment here on more clients.
Ready for more money than you ever thought possible? Let's do this.
More money than we ever thought possible. So what's the energy of that ask?
For me, the first thing that came up when you asked that is the Godzillion.
We are very accustomed in our Expand Your Impact community about asking to have more money than God so that you can feel the expanse of that, right? And then notice the interesting points of view that come up when you think about that for yourself, right?
So a number of Godzillion is a number only God would know how big it is. Mm-hmm. And it's purposefully obtuse and purposefully like poking people that are in this reality. Because if you're in this reality, it's very difficult to feel like you have anything and everything that you could possibly want. It's very difficult to understand that everybody can be rich, that everything can be abundant, right? And we know that those principles are real in our reality. So we use terms like Godzillion to help remind us to how to balance between this reality and what we know to be available to us.
So fundamentally, the business coaches talk to you about that there's just a couple of ways to grow business. Actually, two. Let's just say that, right? You can get more clients, or you can get the clients that you've got to pay more money, right? Simple. But what ends up happening with the solo entrepreneur, the small entrepreneur, is they get jumbled up and tied up in that because they're so used to, especially if you've come from a reality where you earned a salary, right? So the last job I had, I think I made $36,000 for the year, right? So I'm walking around in my head thinking I'm worth, I don't even know what the hourly rate of that would be, but you're like, this is my hourly rate, and I get 2 weeks off a year, and I get my Saturdays and Sundays off, and I'm supposed to work 40 hours a week, right? We have that weird conclusion of that. Well, in this other client story that we want to share with you, this woman had been a lawyer and so lawyers we know have very high, well, higher than a lot of other people, right? They have higher rates, but they often don't account for the rates that they still have to charge in order to be able to run the business, right? And so a lot of solo lawyers still get caught in that trading time for money trap or charging sort of transactionally. And so this particular client had done an amazing job of going and making that shift into sort of a business consultant role, and came to us because she was stuck at that ceiling. A lot of people get stuck at the $100,000 mark because they think that they have to work more in order to jump up to the 100. And what really ends up having to happen is you have to change your rates somehow, so that you're charging more and working less, so that you can take on the tasks of managing team, you can take on the tasks of doing more marketing and sales, or managing the team that does the marketing and sales. But it always comes down to the making more money.
So that brings me to what we recognize sort of the second ceiling that a lot of people go to. The first one was being really limited by lack, confusion, and doubt in your mentality. You just don't believe that you can actually perform, right? So the second level is somebody who's achieving clients and has some regularity with their ability to get clients, right? And they suffer from what I would call like you sell into a program, then you do delivery of the program, and then you are overwhelmed at the prospects of having to do more, and you need to escape on some kind of vacation. It's like an eternal launch cycle where you feel like you're just working your ass off. You don't see how to get through to the next level. So if you're doing fulfillment, you don't have enough time to do sales. So you have times when you eat well, and then you have times when you do not eat well because you haven't been priming the pump the whole time. And typically that person needs to outsource some of the tasks and to leverage a team, and then they need to work into a transformational program, right? And both of those aspects bring up all kinds of shit about trusting other people, right? And believing in yourself. And then when you start to ask for larger sums of money, a lot of self-worth and deserving and sales all brings up all kinds of stuff, right? There's a lot of people that are very good practitioners that don't have a sales background, and they have a hard time understanding, how do I, I've never written a check for $25,000. How can I ask for that much money? Right? There's a lot of that work that goes into creating the sales training. So
we have a couple of free trainings on the Expand Your Impact blog. If you guys want to hop over there at some point, make a note to go do that, expandyourimpact.com/blog, where we talk about the difference between worth and value in the marketplace, and sort of where the trap is that people get caught up with that. And maybe if that's a topic you guys like, then we'll add in something on that to another episode. But making this transition that happened with this client is, so we needed her to earn more money without having to take on any more clients. And so I had her go through what we call the conscious conversion process, which is just a set of questions that you ask clients, you ask anybody, and it gives you a real sense of where somebody's operating from and what they want and why they want what they want, and starts to help them see for themselves where the gap is between what they want and where they're at now. And so my client did this while practicing the interesting point of view conversation in her head with a client, because she was going into the meeting. It was time to renew the client, and she thought if I could just get the client to do what they're doing last year, that would be fine. And I'm used to that work, and she had a lot of conclusions about what that looked like. Well,
including I want the money.
Oh yeah, there was definitely like, oh, I really want the money.
Yes.
So needless to say, she came home from the meeting and was totally distraught and was like, the client said they don't want to do what we did last year. She still wants to work with me sort of, but she's just not interested in doing that. And I needed the money. I wanted the money. And so we worked through some processes with her, same sorts of questions that I ask, right? And I sort of said, what else is possible here? Because it sounds like the client wants to work with you. Did you ask the client what they wanted? And so she went back and asked the client what they wanted. And they said, you know what? I would really like to, go off on a weekend a couple times a year. I think it was like 4 times a year. I'd like to, take you somewhere and we just work on my business for 48 hours. I just want to go to a beautiful place and stay in a hotel and pick your brain for 48 hours. And so the client was like, well, that would be fun. I was asking to travel a little bit more. And so she asked the client, if we did that, what would that create in your business? And, it was definitely an easy 6 figures for that client. And so I said, well, so you asking 10, 20% of that 6 figures wouldn't be unreasonable, would it? Oh, no, And so she did. She asked the client for that. And the client handed over the Amex and said, sure, I think it was $25,000 or $30,000. Here, just charge on my Amex. And she was able to get way more money than she had ever gotten before, and got to travel to go do it, and got to do what she was really good at, like sit around in a hotel and just have somebody pick your brain. How cool is that, right? And be well paid for it.
And the reason that she couldn't see that possibility for herself is that she had the belief that she had to work for the money. Mm-hmm. She had the belief that she had to provide some tangible outcome for the client. And in that belief, she can't hear what the client's actually asking for. Mm-hmm. And in her anxiety about requiring the money and not sensing that the money was coming, right, you shut down and block yourself off from all of your creativity.
So another one of the free trainings that we have on the Insiders blog is about how I got my first $100,000 client, and how I was actually really failing at doing the Amy Porterfield's 5-figure webinar. I was so distraught about that. But here's where this tool comes in. We're asking for the money, right? And in reality, what we've got to learn is understanding the energy of what we're asking for, because I didn't want $100,000. I had a mentor who taught me, be prepared to receive a $100,000 client, and you will, right? So I had written out and I had worked on all of the points of view that I had about what having a $100,000 client would mean. Because remember, I used to have a job that I made $36,000 in a year. And so in my logical brain, that's 2.5 years of work that I would need to be doing in order for somebody to pay me 100, right? Based on that one perception of reality. And so as I cleared away all those limiting beliefs, I said, okay, so if I could provide $1 million worth of value to somebody, and they would pay $100,000 for it, and they would have total ease in doing that, what would I be willing to do for 100? And so that little training talks to you about what the process that I went through to find someone who said, oh yeah, I would totally give 100 to learn how to make $1 million. We ready to move on to the last segment here? Cool.
Ready for more ease, joy, and glory? Let's do this.
Ease, joy, and glory. Can we have that in our businesses?
Ease, joy, and glory. It's easy because I can do it. I learned that from Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn's one of the old school gangsters in personal development. He has a wonderful video where he talks about his own journey, and one of the ways that he decided that something was easy, it was easy if he could do it. Right? And so it really struck me that sometimes we make things hard, but if you can do it, it's easy. And it was just such a obvious sort of fun way for me to reframe ease and joy and glory. We look great on screen.
So with this here, this is the part that we play most with in our community. And we want to invite you into the possibility of. So any of the tactics, we are super known for, we've got planners up the wazoo on how to do all kinds of things, right? There's always a new 21-step blog on 21 ways to get this or that in your business, right? Most of you read that and really love it. And then you want the reality that creates, right? But you don't want to spend the time doing it, right? And so some of this is, well, how do I find people that can support me in doing it, right? Then you got to pay those people. So we got to get more money or more clients, right? And in some cases, what you're looking for is, how can all of this be fun, right? And I remember my very first client, you guys hear about her a lot if you're in the community. The first year I met her, she was making $18,000 a year doing EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. She was teaching about it and doing private sessions. And what we did with her is we found a set of people that loved the work that she was doing and would pay very nicely for it. And because Anne didn't love going out to networking events or speaking on stage like I did, I taught her how to use Twitter. And she stayed at home with her cats and tweeted, loved to tweet, loves to have the conversations with lots of different people at one time. And we ended up doing a little launch for her, and she did $35,000 in a month selling a $6,000 program to, her new Twitter followers. And how cool was that, right? And, I can teach those same techniques to all of you, but some of you, you're not going to make that happen, right? Because you haven't learned how to jump into a question of what is fun. And for me personally, I don't find hanging out on Twitter all the time being fun, but I can play a little bit in Instagram and have fun, and I can play a little bit on these Facebook Lives and have fun. And so over the years, instead of having marketing and sales be drudgery, I've really learned to embody what would make this fun, phenomenal, and rewarding.
And even beyond that, having fun in all aspects of life is a great way, but how can you just set your life up in a way where fun is something that you value, and so you decide in advance when and where you're going to create activities in your life that are fun. Mm-hmm. We have a client that's an avid golfer, and she does it because she enjoys the golfing work. Mm-hmm. So she schedules time to play golf. Mm-hmm. Someone who values fun will establish what is fun in their life and then create a practice around it. There's a recipe for having more fun in your life. I know that your business satisfaction, mm-hmm. the satisfaction that you have in your business really took off when you literally rearranged your schedule so that you had more personal care time at the times when it was important. There was a class you wanted to take, or there was a trip you wanted to make, and you initiated what you wanted ahead of what everyone else wanted. And that was a big shift. And when you first did that,
it feels weird.
Right, because you have a lot of, well, I'm supposed to. You have thousands of I'm supposed to thoughts, mm-hmm. or I'm not supposed to, or I'm, all right, there's a lot of that noise that goes on.
Mm-hmm. And so that's where you go back to the tool that we taught earlier called interesting point of view. I have that point of view, right? It's not okay to go to Pilates class at 10 o'clock in the morning, or to go to 2 Pilates classes in a day. Because, for me, we live in Boca. I was like, only Boca bitches do that, right? And then who was I being if I could just go off and just, work out 2 times a day? And I went to all of the wrongness of me of, well, this personal trainer told me that I was overworking. And what I've come to find out, because I've learned to stay in question with myself and my body and my business with it, is, I have so much fun in my business and I invest so much in it that for me, going to move my body is a way that I can get out of my head and into my body. And I have such amazing ideas for the business and for my clients when I get into the flow of a great yoga class or a great Pilates class, right? So I am very particular now about who I spend my time with, right? The teachers that I don't enjoy as much, I'm just not going to come back to the class. And it has really helped me to, it's not something I have to do every day. I'm doing it because I enjoy the class. I enjoy the moving. I enjoy spending time with you guys. You have a saying where you talk about I get to.
Mm-hmm.
And this summer, the kids are in different camps, and our schedules are pretty flexible, right? Mm-hmm. We can do whatever we want, whenever we want. And so your thing lately is that you get to take the kids to camp in the morning, and you sneak off a little bit early so you could go to Denny's with them and have, your bacon and pancakes with them.
Yeah, I know that I am only going to get so many chances to be with them, especially being with them at the age that they're at. I mean, they're growing. They're going to be off doing their own thing. So when I have a chance to be with them now, I like to take it. So I enjoy that. And in our growth, becoming a better parent was something that I valued. So I, spent time learning and processing what was going on. And I recognized a few habits that I began to shift and undertake. One is to, for every ounce of, negative, you try and have 10 ounces of positive, right? You want to reinforce that you love them and you want to be an example, right? So that is the sort of the tape, the program that's going on in my mind. And I realized I started to play a game with my youngest boy where I was telling him, I get to be your dad. That, like, of all the things that I could do, like, I get to be your dad, right? And the perspective shift means that he's important because I am saying I could be doing all this other stuff, but I get to be your dad, right? And it's such a subtle thing to think, like, everything that he's developed in his own way has been from what we've given him. So I'm now able to deliver this real subtle thing about how important he is, right? And then I combined it with not like I have to be your dad because, like, you're an appendage and because I'm supposed to, right? But I get to, right? And for me, when I really reflected on why that phrase, I had embodied it and took it on, I really began to understand that I was an example of how me choosing to be their dad and me valuing how being a father in my life and for them brought me joy and brought me more, then I really, like, cascaded in this love of this idea of I get to. It's such a subtle thing, but when I put, I get to in front of all this other stuff, I'm recognizing I'm choosing to do that. And it's something that I don't have to do, but I'm getting to do it. I'm choosing to do it. I'm allowing myself to do it. And it's in such alignment with so many of the things that we value really highly that I wanted to share that idea with the group, because at the higher levels that we go in consciousness, I'm recognizing that it's a fine tuning. It's not a wild swing, right? It is a fine tuning, and it is in the appreciation of the words that hit your lips, right? And not going down other paths and focusing on things that you don't want, which is why the tools of interesting point of view, what else is possible, and how does it get any better than this, unlock so much, right? So the I get to was a major hit for me. I loved that idea, and it just sort of occurred to me one day what I was actually inferring, what I was actually doing, and I just couldn't wait to share the excitement with the group, hoping that I might be able to reach a few people in the community and have them enjoy it like I have.
Yeah, so we want to be the invitation for you to choose, I get to. I get to be this entrepreneur. I get to live this life. I get to play with these amazing clients. I get to create more money than I ever thought possible. I get to create a life and a business that's fun and phenomenal and rewarding and gives me so much freedom, right? So if this all sounds great to you, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast here. And for the time being, we're doing these live inside of our Facebook group. So check out Expand Your Impact on Facebook. It's got a hashtag with the name of it. We'd love to have you in there. There's daily content. We create content every single day, videos, trainings, how-to strategies, techniques, case studies from clients. And then if you know that you need some guidance, some direction, some accountability, some masterminding, then reach out to us.
Magic.
At 888-423-5960, and we can talk to you about the possibilities. We've got a Expand Your Impact Insiders program, which meets 6 times a week to give you guys support on getting shit done. And we have some other ways. We do work with clients on an agency basis as well, where we do a lot of stuff for them or with them. But we're really excited to have you guys listening to us today, and we hope that you'll leave a positive review for us when you see this on iTunes, and share the word with others.
Thanks very much.
All right. Bye, everybody.
For more profitable possibilities, come play with Mandy and Ron on Facebook by visiting joineyyi.com. Check out their blog at profitablepearlsofwisdom.com, or to subscribe to Daily Clearings on WhatsApp, text PEARLS to 214-403-0402.